That time of the week when we cross via Zoom to Los Angeles on TheInformer and we catch up with our correspondent. Her name is Natalie Sadie. Natalie, welcome. And as usual, you're about to take us on a ride to explain a whole host of things that are making an impact in the United States, especially on the West Coast or on the East Coast?
Well, this is more of a global thing,
Oh, wow.
George, so it's affecting everybody.
Okay.
So it's something that's happening on social media or around social media, and that is the Stop Hate for Profit campaign. It's an ongoing campaign to hold social media companies accountable for hate on their platforms. Now, this started earlier this year, and what happened was companies stopped advertising for a day back in July and figured that the revenue being withheld from Facebook would get Mark Zuckerberg to act. It didn't really work, not in the way that they were hoping. And so what has happened now is celebrities have stopped posting on Instagram for 24 hours. So you'll notice that some of your favorite celebrities have gone quiet from midnight US time and will be quiet for a full 24 hours.
Can you do that for Kanye West too? Can you do that for Kanye West?
Sorry?
Can you do it for Kanye West as well?
Well, Kanye's just doing Kanye's thing, I think, at the moment. I don't think he's listening to anyone other than Kanye. So what they're trying to do is stop valuing profits over hate, bigotry, racism, anti-Semitism, and disinformation. And what the celebrities are asking for is for groups to be taken down that are supporting or promoting white supremacy, militia, Islamophobia, violent conspiracies, and they want to change platform policy to forbid any event page with a call to arms. They're also asking that these social media platforms commit 5% of their annual revenue to an independently administered fund that supports initiatives, academics, and organisations who are doing work to fight against racism, hate, and division caused by Facebook's inaction. So on the face of it, it sounds like a fantastic campaign for everybody to be fighting for. So they also are fighting for election misinformation, ensuring that there's accuracy in political reporting and voting matters, and to remove disinformation related to voting that has been debunked by credible fact checkers. So all of this is going on, and that's really great. But what they also are asking for is to find and remove public and private groups focused on white supremacy, militia, anti-Semitism, violent conspiracies, Holocaust denialism, vaccine misinformation, and climate denialism. So Mark Zuckerberg did meet with everybody from Stop Hate for Profit on July 17th. He listened to what they had to say, and he made it clear that he had no intention of taking steps towards their requests. So the celebrities that you'll find that have been participating are Kim Kardashian, Sacha Baron Cohen, Katy Perry, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, and there's about a dozen more that I found listed as part of this whole process. Now, as I've already said, on the face of it, it sounds like a fantastic initiative. The part that concerns me is where they talk about removing groups that are promoting things that have been debunked by credible fact checkers and the whole conspiracy theory side of it. And the reason is there are plenty of conspiracy theories that once upon a time, the people believing those were deemed crazy and they were proven to be true. So I think it starts a very dangerous and slippery slope of where we go in terms of freedom of speech. And as far as the anti-vaccine movement, all of that, part of the anti-vaccine movement is a lot of whistleblowers that come from big pharma and vaccine development and places like that. So these are very credible people that are acting as whistleblowers, and they have everything to lose and nothing to gain. I'm not picking a side in this argument. And I'm genuinely not, but my point is there is a moment where who decides what is true, what is not, and what gets taken down? And I think it's a very, very dangerous road. So often when movements like this happen, when you get enough people, action is eventually taken. And sometimes there is collateral damage as a result of all of this. So where we're going on a journey is back to 2018. There was a law that was passed in 2018 to help stop sex trafficking happening online. Yep. And that law was called Foster-Sester. And it was a mashup of two separate bills. It was the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act of 2017 and the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Acts Bill. So movement for this particular law began in the late 90s and early 2000s. What this law has done is it's made websites legally liable for any content that has helped facilitate sex trafficking or prostitution, even if it was consensual. So that has led to crackdowns by corporations and online platforms. Websites were shut down, dating apps were affected, Craigslist personal ads were shut down. And if you've ever read the Craigslist personal ads, they were solid gold for amusement. That's a whole separate thing, but they were shut down, along with discussion forums and social media sites. And as an extension of all of that, even pole dancing posts on social media were either removed or shadow banned because it was deemed to be too sexual in nature. And there are pole dancing posts and pages dedicated to strip clubs and the like, and also pole dancing is a massive fitness craze that has gone around the globe. There are global competitions for this, and they were all shut down as well. And at the time, very few people understood why that was happening. And it all relates back to this Foster-Sester bill. So what the bill did was it encouraged companies to take broad measures and not necessarily be transparent about what they were doing. What the internet did for sex workers was it offered them specialised sites for them to work through. So Craigslist, there was a specialist page called Backpage and Eros, and there were a number of others. It gave these workers the ability to source their own clients online and also more space to negotiate, because if they're working in an area that prostitution is still criminalised, they run the risk if they're working on the street of being arrested if they're seen soliciting. So this just gave them a little more space and ability to negotiate, and also the ability to figure out who they're dealing with through the interactions that they're having online with these people. So some websites also specifically built for these particular workers offered them tools like a client blacklist and things like that if clients were dangerous. So it really helped ensure these girls' safety. And it also allowed these women, men, transgender individuals, whoever was doing this sort of work, to work for themselves rather than working through an agency or with pimps or whoever it may be. And it also allowed them to create a community where they could openly talk, support each other, share information, whatever it was that they needed. Now, the issue was obviously that sex traffickers were using these websites as well. Since the passing of this bill in 2018, apart from the things I've already mentioned about the restrictions online, there has been a spike in the number of missing and dead sex workers. There are more people engaging in street sex work, which is obviously inherently more dangerous. They're still unsure, but there are studies going on about the mental toll this is taking on sex workers. And so many workers have been forced out onto the streets. They're working for pimps once again. They've had to go and work for agencies. And this is an especially difficult and dangerous situation for transgender workers. And with all of this going on, there is very little evidence to support that Foster-Sester has actually helped reduce sex trafficking at all. So this is a wonderful law, or the ideology of it is wonderful, but there have been really horrendous consequences on the other side without very much proof that it has achieved the goal that it set out to achieve. So the Stop Hate for Profit campaign, shutting down white supremacy and racism and all of that is fantastic, but they're really pushing for these other groups where there is freedom of speech, where they're not hurting anybody, to be shut down as well. And that's where I think things like this are a little bit dangerous. And they're also the parts of it that aren't being publicly promoted. Because if you look at Kim Kardashian's post, because she has posted the logo for this group on her page, that was the last post that I've seen up from her. It's talking about stopping racism, bigotry and hate, but it's not mentioning the other parts of this particular bill. So just to bring it all back in regard to the conspiracy theories, I wanted to point out some of the conspiracy theories that were deemed absolutely crazy back in the day, but have since been proven to be true.
Go on.
So one of them was, because it was so interesting to read, that the American government was investigating UFOs. For years, the government kept saying, no, we're not doing it, we're not doing it. Area 51 did not exist, and that the government had no interest in aliens or UFOs. And in 2017, confirmation came through that the government was in fact looking at UFOs and had been for some time. There once was a theory that magnetic materials in money could be used to determine the number of bills a person is carrying with a metal detector. This was first brought up in an episode of X-Files, not a show that I ever watched. But Snopes, which is considered a credible fact-checking source, so they would be a source that would decide whether something was factual and should stay on one of these platforms or not. They debunked this theory and said, no, it's absolutely untrue. And in 2012, a New Scientist article found that it was in fact true. And this technology would actually allow police to catch people attempting to smuggle cash over the border. People, another theory was that people who are chipped can be tracked by satellites. And in the 90s, a psychologist came forward and said that somebody believing that could possibly be diagnosed as suffering from severe paranoid disorder. And in 2018, it has been reported that a group is actually working on a GPS-enabled chip. The last couple, that alcohol was being poisoned during Prohibition, that was proven to be true. The government was actually poisoning the alcohol. Americans playing football, playing American football can cause brain damage. That was completely denied.
Yep.
And
I'm glad you didn't say knocked on the head. I'm glad you didn't say knocked on the head. But can I just say something? Can I just say something?
Yeah.
All of what you're saying is really interesting. But to me, it's all about unintended consequences on one level. And on the other level, it's all about operational matters that I'm never going to talk to you about. If I'm in government and I'm doing certain things, whether we're conducting a sting or an operation, there's no way in the wide world I'm going to alert you or others as to what's going on. So we've reached a stage today that if somebody says something, you go, that's not true. So where are we? This is the challenge. I love where you're going with this.
And that's fair, but let me bring up the last couple of conspiracy theories, because not all conspiracy theories are government related. Playing American football can cause brain damage. We know that now, but in 2002, it was absolutely unequivocally denied.
Yep.
And then in time, I think it was 7 years later, the NFL had come out and admit that this was true. Tobacco companies hid evidence that smoking was deadly. And they had this information in the 1950s.
And before.
And in 2006, a federal judge found that these companies were guilty of of a conspiracy to keep this information hidden. So not all conspiracy theories are government-based. There are a lot of industries and companies and organizations that choose to keep information hidden because it's not going to be favorable if it gets out. So the point of what I'm saying with all of this is the Stop Hate for Profit campaign on its face looks fantastic. Yes, all of these things in terms of racism and bigotry and Islamophobia, all of that should absolutely not be allowed on these platforms. But when you start moving it down the line to conspiracy theories and all these other things, it becomes a little bit of a slippery slope where you can have these other consequences which fundamentally shift the way we live and function. And the reason I bring up foster sester, the reason for that law coming about is absolutely a fantastic reason. We need to be focused on sex trafficking and everything we can do to shut it down. But to affect the oldest profession in the world in the negative way with which it has been impacted, these people deserve protection. These people that go into this profession by choice and enjoy what they do. And I know that some people would find it hard to believe that that is a thing. I have known and had conversations with several escort sex workers in my time, and they went into it knowing what they were doing and actually enjoyed what they did for different reasons. It's not what I would choose, but there's no judgment, and they still deserve to be protected by the law. And instead, they've been shut down, forced out onto the streets, and there's no protections for them. So the whole point of this is, when you're supporting a cause, fantastic, great, but look into what you're supporting and make sure you support all of it, or speak up about the bits that you don't. It's just something to think about. I just wanted to present both sides and leave it out there for people to make up their own minds.
Well, that's what we try and do on The Informer each and every week. And Natalie Sadie, you do it from LA for us, and we appreciate each and every adventure and storytelling episode that you present. By the way, two things that I want to add to this story. I can remember many years ago being told by someone in the know that the army knew the challenges of addiction for cigarettes, and yet they still put rations of cigarettes in each and every pack whenever they delivered it to soldiers, whenever they were leaving and heading off overseas. And you're virtually making them addicts from day one. And they've known that from forever and a day. Yeah. Natalie Sadie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for coming on the journey with me, George.
All the best.